I was out for dinner last week, and Tom Wilson was in the place I was in. And he was sitting with a couple of NHL players from other teams.
Yeah. Well, Tom Wilson...
He's a great, by the way, two different people. Great guy.
And a very good player who
just does horrible things on the ice.
Well, yeah, if you don't like those things, I would take him on my team any
100%,
day of the week.
100% you take
So
him.
what's so bad about it? If you take him on your team every day of the week, why do you have an issue with Tom Wilson?
Because he's hurt people.
On purpose he's hurt people? Or because he's bigger and stronger and tougher than everyone else?
He's broken the rules and hurt people.
Well, I can give you a million. Every player that's played this game has done something.
Yeah, no, hey, listen, I
just feel like Tom Wilson, yes, listen, individual events that I don't like, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But my point about him is off the ice.
We lose sight of how impactful he is. He's a really good player.
Well, you'd love to have him. But off the ice, he's a terrific guy. That's the funny thing about hockey is some of the worst defenders on the ice are the nicest guys off it, which is
all
weird.
The time that seems.
Which is weird. Yeah.
Toughest guys, big. You see guys, and you're like, "Wow, that guy's what a nice guy."
Dave Brown was like an executioner on the ice. Mm-hmm. He's the nicest man you'll ever meet.
Right.
He really is. Brownie is a great guy. He's a pro scout. I see him at rinks all the time. He's a funny, great guy. Mm-hmm. Dave Semenko, the late Dave Semenko. I covered him in the '80s in Edmonton. He's maybe the funniest hockey player I've ever met.
Don't you think those guys, though, were way worse than anything Tom Wilson has ever done? It's all about the relative to the era.
Yeah, some of the stuff that Mark Messier sucker punching Jamie McCown and
Marty McSorley
spearing Mike Bullard. Yeah.
Well, how about on Brashear? I mean, Bertuzzi on Moore. There's a million examples of that. Yeah. Wilson's never done anything to that extent, but because of in relative terms, the game softening, and in many ways, in ways that it absolutely shouldn't, and I advocate for myself, he has been labeled the boogeyman and the worst guy ever, and everyone hates him. And I'm like, man, I'm not shifted that far to this point where I see it that way.
No, but I guess my point about him is he'd be the most hated NHL player. I think the recent poll showed he's the most hated NHL player by a lot.
By fans, you mean? Opposing fans?
No, by players.
More than Brad Marchand?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I find that hard to believe. Marchand, and I love Marchand, the way he plays. This guy licks people, or has in the past. He's done some greasy things on the ice. He chirps. He's so good.
And he's really good.
He's so good.
He's really good.
He's a spectacular player.
What's annoying about him is he's not one of these guys that scores 3 goals and plays 6 minutes. He's really good.
He's spectacular.
He's going to be on the Olympic team.
Oh yeah, lock. I mean, he's pushing towards Hall of Fame status now. I don't think he's right now.
There are people right now in cities across Canada and around the NHL throwing stuff at their TV or their computer or however they're
out west in Vancouver in particular.
At the very thought of that.
Well,
at the very thought of it.
He's
it's
close.
legit.
He's close.
Coach, he's legit.
Yeah, he's really good. I think he can be underrated down there because Bergeron gets so much love, deservedly. Yeah. Pasternak is flashier, scores more goals, but Marchand is just as valuable in my opinion. Yeah. He is a spectacular player. And I guess you're right about Tom Wilson. I listen. I'm not suggesting he is liked around the league. I just feels like there's other guys that play a different. What you can say about Wilson is he will fight. If you got a problem with it, Ryan Reeves is fighting him the first time they play at the Garden.
That first game at MSG,
it's a lock. It's an absolute lock. It'll be the first period. It'll be at center ice more than likely.
Yeah.
Or Wilson's smart enough to know it's coming. He'll probably approach him, drop his gloves quick. He'll have they might have to fight twice, but Wilson will do it.
Yeah.
Which I think is still more honorable within the game. May not make sense outside of the game, but in the game, people would appreciate that more than a guy throwing elbows and sticks and knees and then won't fight. I think. And I understand where the game's going, where that's no longer allowed or kosher. But
what we know about head trauma, I think, you start to wonder.
I don't think players look at it the same way the outside world does.
They don't.
Gord.
They 100% don't. Mm-hmm. Some do.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. What I'm saying is within the game.
You volunteer. The players that play in the NHL are volunteers.
Yes.
And you don't have to fight. So you don't want to. If you don't want to, you don't have to. So there's a culture that encourages it, and certainly there's been a lot of damage caused by it. There's no question that this notion that people don't get hurt in fights is wrong.
Oh, of course.
A lot of people have been badly hurt in fights.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm not suggesting that you have to fight or you should have to fight. What we're discussing here is how people view players and the reputation. And I think a majority of the players would prefer does greasy things, but then fights when we ask them, over does greasy things and then turtles or says I'm not going to fight.
Right.
And I know that's old school thinking. I still think it's prevalent in the game today.
I do think
within the ropes of the game.
I do think one thing though, I know we have to go, but if I'm Tom Wilson, I'm not fighting someone who plays 3 minutes. He's an important player for Washington, right? Like, I'm not just fighting some guy who is only there because he fights.
He's going to, though. I hear what you're saying.
He will in this case, but in a lot of cases, there are guys that I'm not fighting. If you're a legit player, like you're a guy that plays a regular shift, plays top two lines, you're not fighting some guy who's only there to fight because I'm not giving you that. We want you on the ice.
No, I agree. I don't think it makes a ton of sense.
I want to make you play. You're no good. I want to make you play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that should be the case. But I think he'll have his go. Although he did that night too. Brendan Smith chased him around. They fought, and that was it. The second night of the back-to-back, or I guess there was a day in between, I believe, in between the whole Panarin Wilson Gong show. And anyway, we'll see where that goes. And I hear what you're saying. I agree with that philosophy. Why would you fight down in the lineup? But I think it's going to happen here. I think that's going to be abundantly clear come whenever that happens, whenever they play. Whether it's in D.C., New York, certainly at MSG, though.
Yeah.
Because Reeves is a showman, too. Like, Reeves loved Vegas. He'll endear himself to fans in New York. He knows what's coming. And he knows why he was acquired, right? I mean, that ultimately was a big part of it, was they're going to try to toughen up. The Rangers are.
He plays hockey like his dad played football. Straight ahead.
Straight down the middle. Yeah, he's up and down the ice.
Straight lines and through you.